Welcome to A Life More Wild. I'm Christopher Wilson-Elms from Canopy and Stars, and this is our podcast taking you into the great outdoors and helping you connect with nature. Later on, we'll be hearing from a former session drummer and support worker who run retreats for autistic adults in Cornwall. But first, we're going for a bit of a wet and windy walk with eco-psychotherapist and writer Dr. Ruth Allen.
I kind of have this belief that we don't choose the weather in which we heal. It's not always blue sky and sunshine. So unless it's absolutely vile out here, then we work with it, and actually a lot of good things happen in therapy when the weather's not amazing.
She's going to take us on a walk through the woods near her home in the Peak District and explain why she's chosen to bring nature into the counselling she does.
This is where I work. I work here with my outdoor weekly clients. It's above Matlock town centre and it's quite exposed. We're at about 1,000 feet here, and it's a kind of a moorland environment, and it's a very different environment to be in compared to like a closed room. We're sort of in the space together, and it's not a space that belongs to either of us. It's a shared public space actually, and there's people around all the time. You know, you wouldn't have someone walking into your therapy session usually, but here you will meet other people, you'll see people with their dogs. So it's a really different feel. It feels more informal. We sort of travel into different areas depending on really what the client fancies. So there's this big central pathway that goes down the middle. It's very accessible, and then it's really over to, you know, whatever we're doing together in the work or whatever the client wants to do, just to explore week in, week out different routes around it. Part of my work is really observing how people are and what their inclination is and where they are in their bodies and in their mood at any given time. So I'm really tuned into where it seems people want to go, what they're naturally drawn to, and then sometimes I might sort of say, oh, it seems like you're slowing down, should we go down here? So it's a very sort of intuitive, ever evolving process really, where I don't really need to say, right, what are we doing today then? Or where are we going today? I'm just constantly like observing. We're just heading down the main path now, which I think of as like small talk lane, because it tends to be the bit that we arrive in the space and we're just catching up on the stuff that's been happening during the week. You know, how are you and how are things? And just doing the sort of the early check-in that you might do if you're going and collecting someone from a waiting room or something like that. I like those kind of transition moments, but I thought I could perhaps show you where this kind of ant mound is, and maybe take you through to the bottom where the space opens out and you can see bigger views over Matlock, because I think those are really interesting spaces. They're favourites for me. I like the feeling of emerging from a closed space into an open one. And I think that's a very natural human thing. I think a lot of people would probably respond to that, because there's just that moment of like, oh, come out of the tangle and into a bit of a space that perhaps offers a bit more clarity. So yeah, I thought we'd head down there. Working with nature for healing is as old as time really, as old as we've been, you know, we've always been looking to nature. So the concept wasn't new. I've always been interested in sort of exploring at the edges of the mainstream ways of doing things. So it was just something that really appealed to me to see how it would work. And it just felt very natural, because I've always been outside. I'm confident outside. I love being outdoors, and it works for me as a practitioner. So there was a strong thread of, I think this will be good for my clients, but it's also how I want to be. I don't want to sit at a desk all day, or I don't want to sit in a clinical setting all day. It's how I would want to have my therapy. I do say with all the clients I do work with that we work in all weathers. I kind of have this belief that we don't choose the weather in which we heal as a sort of a general guiding principle. You know, we can't always, it's not always blue sky and sunshine. So unless it's absolutely vile out here, then we work with it, and actually a lot of good things happen in therapy when the weather's not amazing. It's like, oh, you know, the rain, okay, great. So sometimes there's a sense of release, or a sense of, oh, well, this is just typical, this kind of thing always happens to me. So I just think we have an emotional relationship with the things that are constantly changing, and the weather's an obvious one. And nature is very much in us. We are nature. And I think we are naturally very responsive, and you don't realise that, I suppose, until you go out and you're tuning in to the differences in mood and behaviour in certain weathers, in certain conditions. Being in movement is a key part of the way I work. And so people tend to sort of think more creatively when they go outside. And there's a metaphor there, isn't there? People come into therapy, they want healing, or they want progress in some area. They feel stuck. They want a change. So being in forward movement is really useful, I think, as an embodied metaphor for the thing that you want to kind of happen in therapy. There's certainly a rhythm that you get into, and certain clients tend to be drawn to different parts, and you notice there are areas where you get to crossroads. So we'll come to one down here, it opens out and you can take various directions, and I find that over and over again we get to the same points and we make choices, and so it almost takes on this rhythm of choice making, and sometimes you end up at the same junctions on the way back, and that's quite interesting because you get a sense of places that become meaningful, and people start to map onto the territory a little bit. So I can tell when a client is drawn to a particular, at the bottom of the site it really opens out, and I can tell that clients will be drawn to certain areas because perhaps they open out and they give a sense of perspective, or that we'll get to these points in the path where there's a choice, and you just sort of start to get a feel for where people want to end up based on where they're at. It's almost like there's an internal mapping of the terrain for whatever's going on at a certain time. And of course people remember areas they've been to where they've maybe talked about things that they're not really comfortable with, or they don't like anymore. And that's an interesting one, because there might be some areas we visit and you have a big conversation and you never visit again because they don't want to go back there. I'll be curious about that. I'll be curious about, why is it that since last summer we haven't been back to that area, and that sometimes just opening that as a question brings an awareness that maybe they hadn't thought that they were particularly avoiding it. There's a lot that just spontaneously arises, and you start to build a sense of people's patterns and their ways of thinking and their ways of moving. I love movement. I love working with movement, and just watching how people sort of stop and start, and where they pick up speed and when they slow down. And I think that tells you a lot about where their confidence is, their sense of agency and autonomy. So I'm always trying to hand that over to them. And sometimes we will walk quite quietly and just be thinking and seeing what arises. So it's really nice for that. It's a lower pressure way of being quiet. If you're sat in a room with someone and everyone goes quiet, you can feel the pressure to fill the space. Whereas out here you've got bird song, you've got the sound of the wind, you've got the creaking in the trees. There's less eye contact when we're walking side by side. There's a natural sense that sometimes we're kind of half looking. We're always in each other's peripheral vision. But there are parts in the site where we go onto single track walkways, and so someone's going to be in front and someone's going to be behind. So there's certain types of therapy where we know eye contact is really important. And there's a lot made about eye contact. But when you're working with trauma particularly, eye contact isn't always what people want. It can be too overbearing. It can be overwhelming. And so I think it really lowers the pressure for people. And I know that I find unbroken eye contact very difficult. And that's to do with how I have sort of grown up in the world. So I find there's too much of an intensity of attention. So I really like the variety of being with people in the space. It's not as intense, I don't think. And some people won't love that because they'll want that intensity in therapy. So we're just about to cross over a wall that's sort of at the perimeter of the main site where all the woods are. It's a kind of a broken wall, and it just goes through and opens out into a bigger view. It's not a great day today. It's quite rainy, it's quite foggy, but there is a sense of coming out from in the undergrowth, and then we sort of step out into fields. So it's quite a nice boundary moment between the two spaces. So you can see it sort of opens up here, fields, and we've got Ryber Castle up ahead. And it's just a really nice, it's big sky, back out into big sky. There's a sort of sense of breathing in, and like, it's a change, isn't it? You come out and like you can feel the wind now. We're getting sort of hit by the elements a bit more. It's a change, and that's the thing to observe. It's going to have different meanings for different people, and maybe no meanings at all. But it is a change. It's a really lovely view. I feel very lucky to work here, and we have a bit of height above it, and I like that. I'm a mountain person. I think everyone has their terrain, they have their environment, and this isn't mountains, it's rolling hills, it's Derbyshire, it's the sort of Derbyshire Dales, but there's a sense of perspective of being slightly above here and then having that sort of looking down through the valley. And for me, that's important for me. I feel good being out here. When I'm out here working, I feel good. And I think that's important. That probably sounds selfish, but I think if I'm going to be out here and this is my work, I want to feel good while I'm out here too. That's kind of important. And then something in me can rest. And then if something in me can rest, all of me is available to my client in a way that maybe it wouldn't be if I was in a white boxed room 8 hours a day. So it's lovely. Some people want to take a photo. Some people don't notice it. They're so in what they're in that they don't notice the view and they head down. And that's something to notice as well. Some people are not having any sort of visual connection to the landscape. They're just pounding the trail. We're just walking around and they're not looking. But that can tell you something about the person, where they're at in their lives, can't it? If I know that if I'm walking through somewhere and I'm not paying it really any attention, I'm quite involved in my head at that point. I'm probably really busy with something and I'm probably not in the best of places, or in the very least I'm just very focused. And so that's telling you something about what it's like to be them in that moment. When there's a lot to say, quite often you do walk less. Sessions tend to be quite slow. Therapy sessions are not at normal walking pace. We're walking quite slowly now. And this might be the pace we take in therapy. It might be faster than this, but the pace may change. If someone's getting exercise about something and they're getting wound up and they're having more of a body response than they are a cognitive one, we might be tearing through and walking. Sometimes I'll look at my steps in a day and there'll be quite a lot. And sometimes I'll be like, how have we hardly gone anywhere? If I see somebody's noticed something, I'll usually just comment on that. I'll just sort of say, oh, you've stopped. And a lot of the time this sounds really procedural. It's like, oh, you've stopped. You're just reflecting back for them in a conscious way what they've done. So it's not like, do you want to go there? Do you? Shall we? It's just like, oh, you've stopped. And then you hold that and then they'll be, yeah, I saw something, or, oh, it'd be quite nice to go in there, wouldn't it? Okay, let's go in. So usually it's just a process of, it's kind of embodied relational mindfulness. It's just observing what's happening, repeating it back, creating that pause for them to think, is there meaning in this? No, there's not, let's carry on. I just saw a squirrel or something. But there's a giant ant sort of mound. You get a lot of wood ants in here. It's quite wood anty. And there's a big pile, and we so often stop at that. It's a classic stop point, is watching ants busy doing their thing. I think we love that. And so there are obvious things like that here, sort of dead animals or birds or a particular bird song that become really like, oh yeah, well, we're not going to not stop and look at that. And so then we might be curious about, I'll sort of say, oh, you're drawn to that. Again, it's just reflecting back. You seem to be drawn to that, and I don't want to feed like, oh, you seem really drawn to that because and then layer on an interpretation. It's just drawing attention to what's happening moment by moment throughout a session, so that the client's thinking, yeah, I was, or I'm not. Something's constantly happening here that wouldn't happen in a room, really. Anything can happen, and it's all material. And you get a sense of what to not ask about and what's just a human mind looking and taking things in, and the length of time that maybe someone's looking, you think, oh, this is meaningful. Let's look at that. We're going to go right now to see if we can find the ants. They're not out today. This is usually a bit of a bigger pile, but maybe it has been lashed with rain up here recently. But they're usually all over the place here and really busy in the tree there, and they're quite often coming along the path, and this is usually sort of more up to here. Looks like I can just see one. Oh no, there's not. There are more. They're quite well camouflaged, aren't they? But yeah, usually this is a real busy spot for the ants. If I was to say one thing that I would encourage everyone to do, is to go for a walk. And it is so painfully simple, but go for a walk and actually pay attention to the world. So leave your phone at home maybe, or at least put it on flight mode, and you listen to the ambient sounds of nature. They are very restorative. They're very calming on our nervous systems. They're really good at stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system. And you're not going to notice the ambient sound or the colours if you're distracting yourself with other things. So I think a tech-free walk once a week goes a long way.
Ruth Allen, taking us on a wellbeing walk on the edge of the Peak District. While getting a bit of nature into your life is good for everyone, one Cornwall-based couple thought that for people with autism, it could be completely transformational. Support worker Natalie and former professional drummer Geoff run the social enterprise Wilderme, where 6 geodomes on a sweep of Cornish hillside are used for activity retreats for adults with autism. Where are you? What does your land look like? What's the setup? Sort of paint the picture.
So Wilderme is a social enterprise that offers sort of wellbeing, creative arts and nature-based retreats for autistic adults. We also offer affordable breaks for families with autistic children. We are based in Kingsand, Corsand, on the Rain Peninsula, which is just across the water from Plymouth in southeast Cornwall. And the views are spectacular. The land's amazing. We sort of fell in love with it 7-8 years ago when we came on holiday, and it's an amazing place.
Yeah. So what's the layout of the site?
Right. So we've got 7 geodomes. The 6 of them we use of accommodation, and the 7th one we have for cooking, for doing activities,
and just sort of socialising and stuff like that. So it's a bit of a hub, isn't it?
Yeah, all our domes look out to sea, off grid apart from water, so solar powered. 2 compost loos, which once people get the hang of and understand the benefits of using a compost loo, and that you're not flushing away 5 litres of water every flush, all that kind of thing, then people kind of are like, yeah, okay, well.
And it's just really sort of wild, natural site. We've got kind of skylarks, and Geoff's kind of bird man, so he's the twitcher of the two of us. So what kind of birds and stuff have we got, Geoff?
At the moment, there's loads of whitethroats and skylarks are all singing. Yeah, it's quite a cacophony of noise at the moment up there.
Apart from that, we hate it. No, it's really amazing.
Explain a bit about the project.
I basically was a support worker in North London at a residential home for adults with autism, and we went on a camping trip to Suffolk and stayed in this amazing yurt, and we all ate together around the campfire, and we sat in the pub and sung songs, and we rode our bikes like through the fields and stuff. And the benefits of the actual holiday was so massive. When we came back, our psychologist and stuff was really kind of blown away by it. And just sort of like, obviously Geoff and I just started talking about it. Geoff is a musician. And then we went to Cornwall, didn't we? Yeah. And we found Maker Heights and this incredible site. And we started talking about like, what could we do? You know, what kind of thing could we offer and stuff if we moved to this amazing place? It just encompasses like everything that makes you feel good in life. So it's all about connecting to nature, which the site is so beautiful and so wild. And it's also as well a little bit hippie-ish here, but it's also on ley lines from like Glastonbury. And it's, you know, it's just amazing. It's a place where you just really relax and sort of de-digitalize and stuff.
So how important is the nature around you to what you do?
Yeah, so I'd say really, really important. Where we are, it's really kind of wild, and there's like wildflowers and gorse and skylarks and stuff. And then you walk along the coastal path and it takes you down into this sort of beautiful bay, and it's really sort of perfect for natural wild swimming. And there's like lovely caves, and then you carry on going through and it takes you into the woods, and there's ancient woodland, and there's so much nature in there, and there's kind of wild deer running around everywhere. Then it starts to get really rugged and really wild, and then you just have these incredible stretches of like beautiful just sort of golden sands, and it's perfect for sort of surfing down there. And you can do SUP or just rock pooling, spotting dolphins and and minke whales we've seen as well.
So you feel like whatever someone's going to respond to, you've got it.
Yeah, totally. In a way, yeah.
You've got everything.
You can kind of get in touch with like different emotions with different landscapes as well. So this is another kind of hippie moment, but you can have you can sit like in the Bay of Kingsand, and the water's just gently lapping against the shore, and it's all really calm and peaceful, and you can kind of get into, I guess, a really meditative state. But then you could go for a walk across the kind of wild headlands, and you know, everything's just sort of just a bit more kind of powerful as well.
And it's interesting because the perception is that people with autism, it might be a complete misconception, really appreciate routine more. So taking people out of that environment, why is that so beneficial?
Yeah, I think it's just basically because sometimes so going on any holiday is really good for you, I think, you know, and we go on a holiday, and, you know, a lot of the time people have some kind of epiphany because you get that time out. But if you then put yourself into nature and you're in like a tent, or you're in a geodome like we have, you're just a step away from nature. So
we have one guest in particular who regularly doesn't sleep very well at all, has anxiety outbursts even during the nights. It's a regular thing. And 2 years ago when they first came, he didn't have any of these anxiety related issues, and we weren't sure. We thought it might be just because we had such a full packed week of activities. It's quite exhausting. You know, we were all quite tired.
In a lovely way.
Yeah, in a lovely way. But you know, every evening around the campfire singing or storytelling, and then you've had a whole day of SUP or foraging
out
or
on the sea and
on
chasing
boat trips.
Dolphins and stuff.
But the second year, last year in the pandemic, we couldn't do the activities, and exactly the same thing happened again. So that's pretty amazing. And the home manager who was there was like, "This is just incredible. Like they've never known him to go for so long." There's definitely something about getting out of the routine and the sort of the everyday setting and being somewhere completely new. And we've had guests that have taken on experiences or tried out things that they would never do in their home. You know, we've had guests that sleep much longer than they ever do at home.
Everyone sleeps so
everyone
well, don't they?
Yeah, you know, like 12 hours
great.
sleeping, 12 hours. I guess that, you know, anxieties and other sort of those sort of related conditions are definitely lowered.
So it might be a big shift in environment, but it's a shift to a much calmer one.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's the, you know, just even to the down to the level of trying different foods. So we do foraging with a local lady does a foraging course, so we do that. And we've had guests that would eat green food, but they never would eat green food at home. It would have to be disguised, or, you know. And we were told, oh, he's never,
having seconds of like nettle soup and stuff.
Yeah, they're never going to eat you're never going to eat the forage food. So we had like backup supplies, but in the end, they were eating it all, and you know, the support staff were like, well, this is amazing. They wouldn't even eat a bowl of soup at home, let alone a green soup.
But I think there's something so exciting about going out and learning about, the food, and also you're picking it yourself, so you're so connected in that way as well. So the whole process, it's it's kind of, everything's more raw, isn't it, I think, when you're doing these kind of things. And this is all subsidized, I guess, the places and things, by our weekend breaks with Canopy and Stars, so that's open to everyone, and the profits from that then go back into the autistic retreats and breaks, affordable breaks, and it keeps Wilderme sustainable.
But I bet you see the same effects on the weekend guests as well.
Yeah, everyone loves it, and they all
definitely.
Yeah, the feedback we get is everyone's like, "Oh, I'm so relaxed. I haven't picked up my iPad all weekend," or
like,
people actually come and they switch off their phones. I'm like, here's my number. They're like, "Oh, I'm not going to switch my phone on," but that kind of thing, which is really
great.
really nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's great.
Is it something that is quite new then? It's sort of nature therapy, if you like, outdoor therapy?
Yes, I think like with doctors are now starting to prescribe nature as well. And I think we're just going to keep opening up. It's like a can of worms, I guess, but opening it is a good can of worms. And it's kind of, we're just going to find that, nature is so beneficial for us. It really, really is. And our hope is that people come and stay and they realise that, we're not separate from nature. We are actually all part of nature, and we have a place within it, and then hopefully go back home and really start to think about where they live and their own environment, and what we can all do to kind of impact that in a really positive way.
So obviously you guys must have seen incredible effects on people on the professional side and on yourselves personally. Is that something you think everyone can access, can feel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I think getting out in your own garden, or in fact, there's sort of science behind Shinrin-yoku, is that even just spending 40 minutes in a woodland can have huge benefits to your mental health. Bringing down your heart rate, blood pressure, all these things. It doesn't take very long. It's just 40. It's a 40-minute walk in the woods. But I think even in your in your own garden, just finding somewhere and showing sort of compassionate attention to nature, where you really zone in on it and experience that love for it, can help you feel like nature loves you as well, and you start to pay more attention to everything around you and the planet as a whole. I think there's a huge benefit for the planet and for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just like I guess just noticing things. Like sometimes if you just say to yourself, right, I'm going on my walk to the shops, and I'm just going to take some time to just notice anything that's in nature, and it is everywhere. It's not, I think, even in cities you do get these beautiful places as well. We do have parks and things that we can go to and access.
I think we're so distracted though with phones digitally, and everything around us as well is blasted on billboards or whatever, that it is quite hard sometimes to go, I'm going to put my phone away, and if I see something, I'm going to actually spend a bit of time and work out what's going on there, and something natural. Because there's a lot of other things trying to grab our attention all the time. Yeah. But once you start doing that little bit, like you said, just
noticing stuff, or just take your lunch outside, because it would just do wonders for your, for how you feel about yourself and the world, I guess, really.
I really like the idea of opening a can of good worms that you came up with earlier. It opens a can of good worms.
Worms.
Bad worms.
The worms we like.
Good worms.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. Thanks for joining us in A Life More Wild. Hopefully you're feeling at least a little bit restored and rebalanced. But if you want to learn more about Ruth Allen's work or stay at the Inspiring Wilderme project, follow the links in the episode notes, where you can also find where to buy our book. You can follow us on Instagram at Canopy and Stars, and follow this podcast too in whatever app you use by tapping that little button so that you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay wild.